Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the National League Rugby preview show, round 16th edition, powered by Talking Rugby Union. Well, our return last week didn't exactly go to plan, did it? With 18 of the 28 matches being postponed due to the big freeze and the cold snap, which brought National 1 and National 2 to a bit of a standstill. But we do appreciate you all bearing with us in terms of how up to date last week's preview show was, as well as when we were announcing which games were on and which games were off. And I know our secretary, Alan McCready, was busy all weekend rescheduling fixtures. So if you do want to find out when your game has been rearranged to, do visit our website. A link to our website is in the description of this video. But we still wanted to take the time to thank both Sevenoaks and Clifton for joining us on round 15's edition of the preview show last week. Unfortunately, Sevenoaks' derby meeting with Tunbridge Julians was one of the games that was called off in National 2 East, but Clifton's round 15 clash with Luxonians was one of the 10 games that did go ahead. But either way, we just wanted to thank both clubs for their help and support last week. So on to this week then, and our feature clubs come from National 1 and National 2 North in the form of Blackheath and Billingham respectively, but more on both of those teams in their respective sections of the National League Rugby preview show. So with the weather improving, we look set to be back to business as usual in round 16. So let's crack on with it, and we begin as always in National 1. So let's reflect then on National 1, where 5 games were postponed, but we were still treated to an absolutely gripping London derby between 4th and 5th place, with Roslyn Park hosting Blackheath. And it was Park who continued their unbeaten run at the Rocks. 6 wins in a row now for Kieran and Power's side after edging past Blackheath 26-25. Roslyn Park was slick and clinical when they needed to be, scoring this wonderful try actually, which was highlighted by England Rugby's social media team earlier in the week. And they were also excellent in defence as well to shut down Blackheath in the final quarter. From a Blackheath perspective, perhaps frustration was the overriding emotion at full time last Saturday, because they paled on the pressure in the last 20 minutes or so, but that cutting edge just evaded James Shanahan's side. But from a Park perspective, they've now beaten 3 of the top 5 sides in the last 3 games. Obviously, those couple of wins against Rams and Richmond before Christmas added to by last weekend's success against Blackheath. So excellent run of form that Roslyn Park are currently on, and steps forward as well for Dean's Crusaders, who once again found home comforts against Sedgley Park with a 55-3 win last time out on the 4G surface at Shaftesbury Park. Dings are now unbeaten in 5 games at home, and their relationship with Premiership outfit Bristol Bears really came to the fore in round 15. Exciting talent Sam Worsley, who actually played against Saracens at the start of January for Bristol, as well as Joe Jenkins, propelled them to this 6th success of the season for Dings. But perhaps it was the defensive effort from the Crusaders which would have pleased the coaching duo of Steen Williams and Luke Arscott the most, because they really did blunt any sort of response from Sedge in the second half, restricting them to just that penalty. So a really good way for Dings Crusaders to open their accounts for 2025. So just a very quick look then at the standings in National 1, beginning in the top half of the table, where Roslyn Park's bonus point win has moved them closer to the main title candidates, who will resume action this weekend. While in the bottom half, Dings Crusaders' win over Sedge has moved them up to 8th in the table, and of course everything else is as you were. But with the weather improving, we were all set for a full complement of fixtures in round 16, which includes one of the teams that were in action last week in the form of Blackheath, and they welcome 7th place Birmingham Moseley to the Utilita on Saturday. And Blackheath are our first feature club of the week on this week's National League Rugby preview show. Now, Blackheath are the world's oldest open rugby club, but they have been on a bit of a journey over the last 2.5 seasons or so. They were relegated to National 2 for the first time in 18 years in 2022. But with that came a fresh approach and a fresh vision for Blackheath to become a more sustainable club. And we are now seeing that come to fruition because Blackheath now have a thriving mini and junior section. They also have a reinvigorated women's section and men's section of the rugby club. And off the field, they were able to purchase their home grounds last summer. So Blackheath now own their home ground of the Utilita, and both on and off the field, they seem to be heading in the right direction again. From a first 15 perspective, of course, they were able to return to National 1 at the first time of asking in 2023. They finished 8th last year in the third tier and currently find themselves 5th in the standings and on a 7-game winning streak at home as well, which is the longest current winning streak at home in National 1. So there seems to be a really good vibe around club at the moment. So for more on this and a bit of a chat about the season so far, we caught up with Managing Director Russell Ticehurst as well as Director of Rugby James Shanahan. James, if we can start with yourself, if you don't mind. I know obviously Blackheath were one of very, very few clubs who were in action last week due to the bad weather that hit the country. But as we kind of get stuck into the second half of this National 1 season, where's the dial for you in terms of how pleased you are with where the club sit at the moment?
Obviously pleased with our home form. Obviously lost to Richmond first game of the season, but since then have won every home game. So that's nice because last year we were kind of, for some reason, would win more away games than we were home. So we've kind of sorted out a home record, which is good. The away games, they're the ones that have been a bit frustrating. We've been in most games. Roslyn Park, obviously, last week, lose by a point. Plymouth lose last played a game. Rotherham last played a game. So, yeah, I think if we could have, sorted those 3 results out, then I think I would have been in a pretty happy place where we are as a club because we probably would have been in around about 3rd spot. I think we're kind of okay where we are. I think we're underachieved a little bit, but the problem is it's such a competitive league that if you don't step up every week physically and mentally, you're going to get caught out. And that's the beauty of National 1. But obviously, as a coach, it's also the frustration because you'd love a few easy games or a few guaranteed wins, but you ain't getting that at this level. We came up into the league and the first thing was to make sure we could, consolidate, basically, which we did last year. And, it's hard for a lot of teams when they come up to actually do that. So we were pretty happy last year. So it was really building on that. So if we did finish, 5th, 4th, then it would have been seen as a successful season and another build, and then hopefully, push on a bit next year.
Yeah. And how does that, from your point of view, Russell, as a managing director, how does that kind of feed into your thinking when you want the best outcome for the club? Because as James said there, National 1 continues to be competitive. And obviously Blackheath had that relegation a couple of years ago, but James mentions the word build there. You guys have started to take steps in the right direction again. So how does that feed into your thinking as a managing director when you're planning all these different aspects in such a competitive league?
Yeah, well, obviously relegation is very difficult to address, and obviously you get a lot of feedback from your supporters and your sponsors. Some of it direct, some of it indirect, and it's a difficult job. James was very keen to put us back in National 1 as quick as we could. My job and the board's job was to support him in doing that within the means that we had. And he did fantastically, got us straight back up, which was great. So we managed to retain our sponsors because the link on the pitch is obviously a direct link to the one off the pitch. If you're doing well and playing well, if the guys look like they're going to win every match, it's very exciting for spectators, very exciting for members. We took a good long look at the club when we got relegated. You can use all the management speak you like, but we looked at the women's section, the minis, the juniors. We looked at what we were doing with our first 15 and how we could improve it, and then looked at the budgets and the financial constraints. But then what we also looked at was what were we aspiring to? We looked at the championship and we thought we're not quite sure what's going on there yet. So why would we do anything that compromises the financial sustainability of the club in order to get to somewhere where ultimately it's just going to cost you an absolute fortune? And the rewards are, diminishing by every season. So we took an inward view and we thought, well, let's just make the club stronger. Let's make the club better. let's do more rugby. We know that we were losing some of our women's section. We were losing some of our minis and juniors, and we thought, well, let's put that right and see if we can fix all these things. We developed the first team squad, so we've got a second and first 15 now, which is proving to be very competitive on a Tuesday and Thursday, and it's good for us on a Saturday, as you can see by the results. So we took a good look at the club in the round and thought, we want to be here for another 160 years. How are we going to do that? And I think managing your own destiny was the thing that we came up with. And that started with buying the ground. That started with looking out for other commercial interests that we could develop and utilise at the Well Hall. And we're going to carry on doing that, because until the game sorts itself out, National One is good value. The games are good. The games are exciting. And we've got a good product.
Like the key for us, obviously, the year we got relegated was the focus on getting called it like a one squad. So getting that second team back up and running, which is difficult. And I know a lot of clubs really struggle with that. But we're averaging now, 50 guys at training every Tuesday, Thursday, which is huge. The key is, can we keep all those players? We've got kind of 60 registered, and there was a point when we thinking, we might be able to get a third team out. And then therefore we'd have, we've got the Bandits, which is the social side of the club. But we were potentially looking at going to 4 teams every Saturday, which is huge from where we were, a couple of years ago. The year that we did go down, the simple fact was, those last 5 or 6 games, we weren't picking on our best team. We were picking on who was fit and available, and you were just getting out 20 players. And, I played a game. I was on the bench for 2, which gladly I didn't come on, against Sale and Cinderford. But when you got your 45-year-old director of rugby sitting on the bench, even though I loved playing and loved the game, that's not really ideal. So, that's why I said we've got probably 65 players registered on a few of them are at uni, a few are kind of guys that if you need us, we'll help you. But we've regularly got, 50 players at training and available for selection. So we kind of haven't had to call upon SOSs, which is nice. Currently in the squad, we've got, maybe 5 or 6 players we've got 2 players have played over 200 games. 3 players actually, have played over 200 games. You've got Marcus Bircham approaching 300. You've got then 4 or 5 others that have played over 100. A couple of boys have played 150. And having conversations with a few lads this year about retainment for next season, and a lot of them are going, I want to stay another year because I want to get to that 100. And I think quite a few of the young boys that arrive, they're kind of thinking, if I do 5-6 years at Blackheath, I can get 100 caps. And that's, in the oldest club in the world, that's quite an achievement. So that's real positive as well. There seems to be something at Blackheath that wants to keep players here.
And I guess from your point of view, Russell, how pleasing is it to see these different strands kind of flourishing? Really, you mentioned that the connections you've been making, the building of the first 15, the building of the women's section. You mentioned before the purchasing of the grounds last summer. You've worn various different hats at the club. So how pleasing is it to see the club all moving in one direction once again?
Yeah, do you know what, Chris? That's probably the first time anyone's asked me that during my 13 years. How nice is it? I think it's been absolutely fantastic. And the only thing I can tell you is it's really hard work. And I think that gets forgotten. They see you doing the same thing year in, year out. People think, it must be easy. It doesn't get any easier any year. And then you add to it by trying to do something else, which puts another stress and strain on the club. But, that's what rugby's all about, isn't it? That's what rugby clubs are all about. You're trying to improve all the time, little bit by little bit. And if you don't, then you know what happens. You do get relegated. If you try and do nothing, things will happen, but they probably won't be the things you want. So we're trying to sort of maintain a bit of a level of control over what we're doing, but it's very internally focused. We're not going to be driven by anyone outside. James and I talk every week about how's it going. We're already talking about what we're going to do for the next 2 or 3 years. And that's important to have a handle on and an agreement about where you want to, direct the club. If you haven't got that, you're just working for nothing really. But it's been very pleasing to see how things are finally sort of picking up and going in the right direction.
Yeah, and I guess a microcosm of that, James, has certainly been the home form on the pitch at your home ground of the Utility. Obviously, 7 straight wins, if I'm right in saying, going into this weekend. I think it's 11 of the last 13 that you've won at home. So that must be a real plus point for you when you are taking those steps forward, James.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, really happy with that. I mean, yeah, didn't know 11 from 13. One of my probably weaknesses as well, like I said about enjoying the win. Like as soon as you win, you kind of go right. Next challenge, what's next? Who's up next? So actually, yeah, 11 from 13 is really good. You know, obviously we started badly against Richmond, but Richmond have shown what a quality outfit they are. So maybe it's not as bad as you kind of obviously thought straight after the end of the game. But yeah, no, we're pretty happy with that, and yeah, looking forward to Moseley. I think we owe a performance against them. I'd say that was our poorest performance this season away at Moseley. Just nothing seemed to really go right. Line out, scrum. We made some absolute schoolboy errors, which gave them 21 points, and it was a real. Yeah, probably one of the one times this season that the lads have got kind of the hairdryer treatment because it just wasn't acceptable. Yeah, after last week disappointment against Park and not getting the result we wanted, I think we kind of owe ourselves as a group to really step up this week. And I've always said, you know, got to have that ability to bounce back. You know, you can have a tight defeat, say like at a Rotherham, and then the focus was like we can accept getting a point at Rotherham if we can get 5 points at home. You know, you kind of accept that's okay. Whereas if you don't get the home result after an away defeat, then it's not acceptable. So we've kind of tried to focus on that bounce back ability and making sure we don't kind of go double poor performances, so to speak. And we've been pretty good at that this year. So yeah, I'm hoping obviously we can do the same on Saturday.
And just before I let you both go, guys, a bit of a question to you both, really. Russell, to start with you. You mentioned that kind of you and James are always having conversations and always looking ahead to where you want the club to be in kind of 2-3 years. But in terms of this season, the second half of the season, where would you like Blackheath to be come the end of April? You're obviously making steps forward now, obviously finishing 8th last season and you know, starting round 16 in 5th place. What is the ambition, certainly for Blackheath, over the next sort of 4 months or so?
Well, I think for me, it's certainly to maintain our home form. It would be fantastic to go the rest of the season unbeaten. I know that's that's a big ask of the players, and that will rely on a lot of things. But for me, that would just be a tremendous feather in our cap if we could go, just the loss against Richmond and then go the rest of the season at home unbeaten. So I'll give James a challenge there for that one. But in terms of league position, I'm actually not as worried about that as perhaps I am just the whole thing. I think if the squads, we're in a retention phase at the moment, we're re-signing players. If we're looking good for next year and we finish in the top half of the table, third, fourth, or fifth, then that's a good season for me, and that's another building block that we can go on and use for next year.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to go. Yeah, if we can finish top 4, which we know after last week losing at Park will be tough because there's 4 quality teams above us, but we do play Rams at home, we do play Rotherham at home, so we will potentially have those opportunities to take points, and there'll be really tough games, hard games. But looking forward to those. I would like, obviously, to get a few more away wins. Just like I said, our away form has been a bit indifferent. So if we can kind of sort that out. But if we finished, 5th, I think I'd be happy. Top 4, I think it'd be a really good season. And like Russell said, we're on the retainment at the moment into recruitment. Could be a few boys retiring and stuff. So there could be a few boys that we want to look at in the next few games over the next 10 weeks to see where they're at, that have been playing really well for the second team. And yeah, can they step up to that first team level? And I think there's probably 4 or 5 that could easily do that. So it's about, still want to win games of rugby, still want to finish as high as we can, but we can't get promoted. We're not going to get relegated. And we also have to have one eye on next season, because if you throw everything into this year and say we finish 3rd or 4th, but then say a few boys retired and then a few boys are on the fringe who weren't getting first team go to other clubs, then all of a sudden you've got a lot of recruitment to do. And one of my things has always been trying to only have to recruit 5 or 6 players a season, not 12 players a season. So obviously we did that after the year we got relegated. We recruited heavily, but I'm hoping now each year it's just 5 or 6 players being replaced every season into the squad and just getting stronger and stronger.
So a massive thanks to both Russell and James for their time earlier this week. Really interesting to hear about the wider club activity going on at Blackheath at the minute, as well as the on-field progress they are making under the guidance of James. And as we mentioned during the chat, Blackheath do host Birmingham Moseley on Saturday. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff at the Utilita. So if you fancy getting your sporting fix why not choose Blackheath this weekend? Get down early, soak up the atmosphere as well. And I believe Blackheath's pre-match lunches have been an absolute hit this season. So if you are interested in making a day of it or just visiting Blackheath Rugby for the 80 minutes on a Saturday, do visit blackheathrugby.co.uk for more information. So what else do we have to look forward to then in round 16 in National 1? And actually the action in the third tier begins on Friday night with league leaders Richmond hosting Esher at the Rag. Of course, the last home outing for Rob Powell's side was when they saw their unbeaten run and 13 matches come to an end against Roslyn Park just before Christmas. So they will be eager to resume their title bid with a victory against 13th placed Esher. On to Saturday, where 6th placed Plymouth Albion will be looking to build on a full house of victories in December when they welcome Bishop Stortford to Brickfields, who had a very encouraging first half of the season. Second place Rams may have one eye on that aforementioned Friday night meeting between Richmond and Esher before they turn their focus on their job against Stings Crusaders. Rams are currently 1 point behind Richmond as things stand. Roslyn Park are targeting a 4th win on the spin and more home success when they welcome bottom of the table Darlington Moden Park to the Rock. Third place Rotherham Titans are very much part of the title conversation, aren't they? After moving to within 4 points of Richmond before Christmas, Harvey Billion's side will be targeting a 7th win from their last 8 games when they host 10th place Sale FC. And lastly, a pretty big game between 11th and 12th with Sedgley Park entertaining Leicester Lions this weekend. The Lions' first victory of the campaign did actually come in the reverse fixture back in round 4. So could the Midland side do the double in the Northwest? International 2, and we start with National 2 East this week, where 3 games beat the cold snap last Saturday, and Oxford Harlequins also snapped their 5-match winless run with a key 38-31 victory over 6th placed Bury St Edmunds. A really entertaining contest despite the thick fog which descended on the Horsepath Sports Ground last weekend. Oxford Quins led 24-14 at one stage. They were reeled in by Bury St Edmunds around about the hour mark, but the decisive moment came 4 minutes from time as Jonathan Hughes' try ultimately sealed a first win for Oxford Harlequins since November. So a really good way for Oxford Quins to begin 2025. And that victory has actually edged them away from the bottom 2 after 13th place Colchester were beaten 57-28 by Barnes at Raven Park. Colchester did claim a try bonus point in this one, but they could do nothing to halt Barnes, who scored 9 tries, 4 of which came from hooker Matthew Humphreys, who scored a hat-trick in a 9-minute window. That power up front, once again, proving to be a lethal weapon for Jack Heel's side, who began the new year with a win. While elsewhere, Guernsey Raiders also began with a victory as they made a welcome return to Foots Lane to face 9th placed Havant. Postponements and cancellations meant Guernsey hadn't played in front of their home supporters since the middle of November. But Anthony Armstrong's hat-trick, as well as a very, very strong first half showing from the Guernsey Raiders, helped them to a 40-14 victory, and it's now 7 straight home wins for Jordan Reynolds' side this term. They've really made Foots Lane that fortress again in the 2024-25 campaign. So those results did have an impact on this league standings. Just looking at the top half now, with Barnes moving up to 2nd place and 6 points behind leaders Tunbridge Julians, who of course have a game in hand, while Guernsey were able to close the gap on Canterbury. In the bottom half, Oxford Quins are now 8 points clear of the danger zone, but Colchester do have a game in hand to come at the end of February when they travel to Guernsey. So on to round 16, where the aforementioned Barnes host 11th place Sevenoaks. As we said on last week's show when we featured Sevenoaks, they have won 3 of their last 4 games, but this will be a tough assignment in the capital for Adam Bowman's troops. Barnes' fellow title candidates Dorking face a potentially tricky test away at Bury St Edmunds this weekend. Dorking have won 7 of their 8 away games this term, while Bury come into this one having won their last 3 at home, which includes inflicting the only defeat of the season on leaders Tunbridge Julians at the end of November. So this will be a very interesting matchup between Bury St Edmunds and Dorking, and it'd be interesting to see if Jacob Ford's side can upset a side above them in the standings like they did to TJ's a couple of months ago. Meanwhile, having said before that Guernsey closed the gap on 4th place Canterbury last week, Jordan Reynolds' side could actually leapfrog them in the table in round 16 as the pair meet at the Marine Travel Ground. But that is easier said than done for Guernsey because Canterbury have lost just once at home all season. It's Derby Day at Dry Lees with Henley Hawks hosting Oxford Harlequins. These two played out a 19-all draw back in September. So which way will this one go? With the Hawks aiming to arrest the run and 3 successive defeats. Elsewhere, 10th placed Old Albanian entertained Colchester, with OAs looking to build on their victory over Oxford Quins before Christmas. It's top versus bottom with Tunbridge Julians returning to action against Worthing at the Slade. TJs have won 13 of their 14 matches this term and will be looking to resume their title bid with another win this weekend. And Westcombe Park, who won all 3 of their games in December, take on a Havant side who are back on the road in round 16. So over to National 2 North now, where there isn't an awful lot we can reflect on from round 15, as all 7 matches unfortunately fell foul to the weather last weekend. Files meeting with Lim at Woodlands was the last to go on Saturday morning, so no action to look back on per se in National 2 North, but we will remind you of the state of play in the division at the moment, with the top 3 sides separated by just 1 point, with Leeds Tight currently in possession of pole position. And for those who like to look ahead and build up to big games coming up in the second half of the season, the next meeting between 2 of the top 3 is on February the 15th. That's round 19 when Leeds Tykes host Sheffield, but plenty of rugby to come before then. And at the other end of the table, as you can see, just 12 points separate the bottom half of the table, so we could be set for a right battle to avoid the danger zone in the second half of the campaign. And currently propping up National 2 North are Billingham, who sit 7 points from safety with a game in hand, and the North East outfit are our second feature club of the week on the National League Rugby preview show. Now, this is Billingham's second season at this level after a first ever promotion to National 2 in 2023. They survived the threat of relegation on the final day of last term, but after a very encouraging start to this season, where they lost just 2 of the first 6 games, they are without a win in 7 and look to have another fight on their hands. But whilst Billingham are searching for victories, the culture and the community at the club continues to move in a positive direction. So for more on this and a look ahead to what is a pretty big game against 10th placed Hull at Greenwood Road on Saturday, we caught up with Director of Rugby Peter Evans and Head Coach Dan Finney. First of all, let's start with you, Peter, if you don't mind. It's been almost a month, can you believe it, since you guys last played a game in National 2 North due to Christmas break and obviously the weather, which wiped out every single game in this division last weekend. But looking ahead to kind of round 16, what are the takeaways from the first half of the season for Billingham that you can take into the second half of the campaign?
Yeah, much the same as last season, to be honest. We're still kind of learning and developing and picking up as we go. We do really need to take our chances. Something that we learned last year. We really targeted bonus points this year, and we haven't quite got there just yet. The games prior to Christmas, we were leading at half time in most of them, and then slipped away in the second half, which is a bit of a theme for us at the minute. But we are performing and playing well. The teams that we've played have picked up form when we've played them. The Tyndale game before Christmas, they haven't lost in a number of weeks. We were confident going into the game, and we played really well. Just a couple of inches in that crossbar, and we'd have got over the line and won the game. But Yeah, it's definitely taking our chances and concentrating for 80 minutes. But we are a young team. We are still learning. We're still developing. So, it's all about sort of getting that complete 80-minute performance.
It's something we've spoke about, and it's something we're learning pretty quickly, is that, 80-minute performances are vital for us, and consistency is massive. But I think the big thing we've learned over the last couple of seasons is that the league takes its toll on bodies, and the players are sort of showing that. I think one thing we've struggled with is consistency around squad week to week. We've had injuries, we've had unavailabilities, and that takes a massive toll, especially when you're trying to get a run of form and you're trying to catch bonus points, you're trying to get 80-minute performances. It's difficult when the squad's changing week to week, but it's something that we're working towards. We're quite proud as a club that we've got a really strong second team and a young group of Colts who are very sort of strong and are pushing, and hopefully will give us longevity as a club and sort of feed us in the next season or two.
This season we've had 11 debuts, and 6 of those debuts have been teenagers. And most of those teenagers have been forwards, front row forwards, second row forwards. The Sheffield Tigers game just before Christmas as well. Who also started picking up a bit of momentum just before the play does. We ended the front row with 2 18-year-olds in the front row, a 17-year-old in the second row, and a 19-year-old in the back row. So it is young. There's nothing to hide behind that. We have what we have. The kids are brilliant, and we knew we would be in this case around this situation this year. Lost a few experienced boys last year through retirement and returning to home clubs, if you like. But the lads have stepped up brilliantly. We're proud of that. We can't bring in enforcements and pay them. We have to rely on growing organically through our youth and development, or also bringing players in from lower leagues who want to play the highest level they can, which is all about what we're trying to do as well.
Yeah, and Dan, both you and Peter have spoken there really enthusiastically about the young lads, and I know, kind of doing a bit of research last night, you were speaking about the young lads even in pre-season and speaking so positively about them. But when you do bring them into a National 2 North game, you've been in this league now a year and a half, it's such a tough breeding ground for them, isn't it? And I guess everyone's trying to learn on the job, and you guys as coaches are constantly developing as a team, whilst also trying to pick up those positive results.
Yeah, I mean, from our point of view, as coaches, we're still learning at the level. We're game management, different tactics, the way we sort of approach different games. So when we're throwing these youngsters in the mix, that there is no better place for them to learn. Don't get wrong, that they're learning harsh lessons quickly, especially those tight 5 forwards. That there is no better learning ground than scrummaging against really experienced boys at this level. But again, it's something we're really proud of, and we have been for a while. And for years, it's what our club's been about is developing the youth, and it seems that these last couple of seasons that we've had to throw them in the deep end a lot quicker than usual. But that's just where we are, and it's a challenge that those lads are happily thriving on and are throwing themselves into. And we're seeing improvements week to week, and hopefully it starts to show them results.
And Daniel mentioned there about sort of learning on the job, and we're a young group as a coaching group. We're looking to develop that. We're actively, constantly looking to bring in experienced people to assist. We are learning, and it's difficult on the job, and we make no bones about that. But it's me and Dan are both Billingham lads through and through, and we've been through every team in the senior section and the youth teams. So it's something we're incredibly proud of, and we've got a great backing through the committee as well. The word sustainability is thrown about a lot these days professionally, but also for us, it's massively important. Anyone who's been in the club over the last sort of 4 or 5 years will see massive change. We've just recently done nearly a £500,000 extension, which has improved the game experience for a supporter. And we've got the second phase of that we're looking to implement over the next couple of years, which is based around players, changing rooms, gym, all that kind of stuff, that we're looking to do everything we can for a player at this club to improve, basically, without paying them. So it's all about moving forward and make sure that we can grow organically and make sure we're sustainable, which currently we're doing, and we're doing a fantastic job of that. Obviously, some wins on a Saturday had really helped the situation, but last season, any learning from that, we started off really well. We had a blip and we finished really strong. I have enough faith to know that we can do that, and we've been here before. And we often say this, but this club's built on backs against the wall. We've had some tough times in our past, and nothing will change there. We're duck to water for us. We're used to that.
Yeah, and I know obviously we're speaking on Tuesday night, Peter, so all the build up to the whole game really kicks into gear now. But on the opposition on Saturday, what have you kind of made of Hull? They've been kind of an up and down season. They've beaten some big teams in the top half. I mean, they went to Wharfdale away. I think they've beaten Fyle as well. What have you kind of made of them, and what do you kind of expect from them on Saturday?
Yeah, we've played against them a number of times over the last few years, and even the league below. They're very, very talented in terms of individuals that they have. Sort of game breakers, if you like, people who can do things that not many people can. We need to be aware of that, but also they have a very, very powerful game, powerful ball carriers. So your defence has got to be strong, but we believe we can score points against them. We did away from home after a pretty terrible first half, to be honest. Kind of the other way around, which was the book the trend for our seasons kind of going. We had a really poor first half, and second half we pulled it back with 4 tries and nearly ended up getting within 7. We've got to go there and focus on what we want to do, but we're a proud team at home, as you can tell. So I'd like to think that we'll put up a real fight.
Yeah, and you mentioned there, Peter, that you're obviously a really proud team at home, and I know obviously this season is where you've had the most success. So how much would it mean to kind of get that first win of 2025 at Greenwood Road on Saturday afternoon? Because if I'm right in saying you've got kind of some big games coming up against sides of the top half, so it does feel like a bit of an opportunity to really kick the new year off in the right fashion.
Yeah, obviously we were disappointed last week. We felt that was an opportunity to go in, albeit their tough ground. We won there last year. Potentially go there and win at Otley. Obviously this week it's heightened with the fact that there was no game last week. It is a big game. They're all big games. But this is, you're right, this is an opportunity. I think there's lots of positives to take from the whole season. I think we are competing. Clearly we don't want to be where we are in the league. There's no point hiding behind that. We are where we are, but this is definitely a game we're targeting for points, as we do every game, but specifically this is one that I've got to tick against that we've got to get something from to really kickstart our year and give us a bit of confidence moving forward.
I know we spoke about there bringing the road being a bit of a fortress, if you like, but we try to use it as a sort of our home patch. We try to make sure we get the most out of it, and I speak about it quite a lot with our social media guy who does a lot of interviews and stuff. It's a place where the fans really get behind us. The lads love it. The lads love the atmosphere, and hopefully we can start 2025 with a bang and get over the line against, like Pete said there, really strong physical Hull side.
So a big thanks to both Peter and Dan for their time on Tuesday night before training. As you can hear, as you can see, both are so passionate about everything that's going on at Billingham, from the top of the club right the way down to the bottom, and both have long associations with the North East outfit. But both Peter and Dan will realise the opportunity Billingham have to pick up their first win since the middle of October this weekend, when they welcomed 10th placed Hull to Greenwood Road, and Hull themselves ended 2024 with a tense but crucial 37-36 Derby Day win over Hull Ionians. But given where both Billingham and Hull find themselves in the table at the moment, it does feel like a big contest at Greenwood Road on Saturday. And after no action at all in National 2 North last weekend, what else have we got in store in round 16 across this division? Well, 8th place Chester welcome Fylde to Hare Lane. As we touched on last week, 4 of Chester's 5 wins this season have come at home. So can they add to that on Saturday? Table toppers Leeds Tights go to 7th placed Hull Ionians, aiming for a 6th straight win. The Eyes did give Leeds something to think about in the reverse beating back in round 4, despite losing 37-25. But can they ruffle Tyke's feathers again at Brantington Park? We'll have to wait and see. 2nd place Lim host Sheffield Tigers. Adam Fletcher and Andy Davis' side have won their last 11 home games, a run which stretches back almost a year. But the Tigers did give Lim a real fright back in September at Dormore, and they could have won the game only for a missed conversion right at the death. So how will it play out in Cheshire this time around? And after that meeting with Sheffield Tigers was called off last week, 11th place Preston Grasshoppers are building up to another important clash, this time against 13th place Harrogate. Hoppers sit just 6 points clear of their visitors on Saturday, so it is safe to say this will be a crucial contest at Lightfoot Green. Back to the picture at the top. as Sheffield entertain Tynedale, and like their other title counterparts, this won't be a walk in the park for Sheffield, with Tyne having won their last 4 matches, and they are also unbeaten in 6 games. So this is a really interesting contest at Aberdale Park. And finally, Wharfdale welcome Otley to the Avenue. The 5th placed hosts have won their last 5 on their own patch, but Otley did beat the Green Machine 44-31 back in round 4. So who will come out on top in the Yorkshire Dales? And we finish in National 2 West, where we saw the majority of action in round 15, and we were certainly entertained across the 5 matches that did take place, especially at 4th place Taunton Titans, who drew 38 all with league leaders Camborne in front of a crowd of over 1,100 at Veritas Park. A fantastic advert for National 2 West Rugby, with both sides leaving everything on the pitch in this one. And after some toing and throwing in this contest, Taunton did lead by 14 points when Shai Bonnick dotted down to make it 38-24 to the hosts. But 2 tries in the final 10 minutes from Alex Ducker and Will Tanswell clinched a draw for the table toppers. And how precious will those 3 points be for Steve Larkins' side come the end of the season? We'll have to wait and see, but they did well to fight back in the final 10 minutes to leave Somerset with 3 points. And also, by the way, Camborne scored yet another absolutely outstanding try in this one. Their opener from Jordan Rose is a beauty, with a crossfield kick picked up by winger Harry Larkins, who then produced this outrageous offload for Rose to score. That was Camborne's first try, but in the end, the Cherry and Whites did have to settle for those 3 points, as we mentioned, while Taunton remain unbeaten at home. Well, what a fantastic contest to begin 2025 between Taunton and Camborne. But that result at Veritas Park meant 2nd place Clifton shaved Camborne's lead at the top down to 4 points after they made it 9 wins on the spin. They did actually find themselves 12-0 down against 5th place Luctonians, but tries either side of half-time from Jay Evans and Matt Smith, as well as the boot of Ollie Milner, proved key for the Lavender and Blacks in their 16-12 success. And with fellow top spot candidates Cinderford not in action in round 15, here is confirmation that Clifton are now up to 2nd and are 4 points behind Camborne with the same amount of games played. They still have to play each other twice this season as well, so the title race is bubbling along nicely as we enter round 16. In the bottom half, bottom club Devonport Services was so close to a 3rd win of the campaign, but were left heartbroken by 7th placed Old Redcliffians. The away side snatched it right at the death as Tom Fogarty's quick thinking sealed a 26-20 win for Dan Cox's men, with Devonport having to settle with just a losing bonus point, as yet again they saw a game get away from them in the second half. So a dramatic win for Old Redcliffians in that one. But onto a new week and onto round 16 schedule in National 2 West, and we start with 2 sides who were in action in round 15. Taunton, who we have mentioned, go to 12th place Bourneville, who lost 33-10 away at Redruth. That was their 7th loss on the spin for the Chocos, who remain 1 point above the bottom 2. So can they stop the rot at Avery Fields on Saturday? Table toppers Camborne welcome Loughborough students to the Recreation Ground on Saturday, with the visitors coming into this one after an excellent 55-14 win over Hornets last weekend. Archie Keane finished off this stunning move, which included a barnstorming run from Ed Harvey, while hooker Aidan Rees scored a hat-trick on a very positive day for the students. And a subplot to this one actually is that whilst Camborne have won all 7 of their home games this season, Loughborough did beat the league leaders 49-31 back in September. So can they cause their host problems again this weekend? The standout tie of round 16 comes at Dockham Road, with 3rd versus 2nd as Cinderford entertain Clifton. Cinderford unbeaten in 6, Clifton 9 wins in a row, so both are very much hunting down Camborne still. So who can strengthen their promotion credentials in Gloucestershire. Elsewhere, 11th placed XC University entertain a red blue side that are up to 6th in the standings after last week's win over Bourneville. Nigel Hamley's men have lost just one of their last 6 games, so the Reds are going along nicely. Hinckley welcome Hornets to Leicester Road. The 10th place side, who's hit 5 points clear of the bottom 2, will be craving some consistency in 2025, while Hornets will want a reaction after leaving Loughborough empty-handed last time out. Luctonians take on Devonport Services, aiming for a 4th win from their last 5 at Mortimer Park, while 13th place Macclesfield go to Old Redcliffians. Now Mac remain 1 point behind 12th place Bourneville, but now have a game in hand, and the last time Mac met Old Redcliffians, it was a 34-all draw back in September. So what will the outcome be down in Bristol? So that is it then for round 16's National League Rugby preview show. Plenty to look forward to this weekend, and don't forget to support us if you can by hitting the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free to do, and the number of subscribers we have continues to climb. So just hit that subscribe button if you're able to, and it will be much appreciated because your support doesn't go unnoticed. Do also share and like our content both on YouTube and across our social media channels, because that does boost the profile of National League Rugby that little bit more. As always, do check out our website for all the latest fixture information, the latest reviews and previews of the weekend's action, and of course you can check out our website for all the scores from round 16. Don't forget there is a Friday night game this week in National 1 between Richmond and Esher. So come full time on Friday, come full time on Saturday. National League Rugby's website is the place to be. If you do get a chance as well, do visit talkingrugbyunion.co.uk. They are massive supporters of National League Rugby, and they allow me to put most of my time into National League Rugby each and every week. So it is certainly worth you checking out TRU if you can. So thanks as always for joining us on the National League Rugby preview show this week, and wherever you're heading to this weekend, do make sure you enjoy your National League Rugby.